I'm very grateful that he read that title, which I came up with because I don't think I could read it again. It's a bit of a tongue twister. So what am I talking about when I say that NFTs may be non-fungible, but they are not non-infringeable? I work for a company that does brand protection, and we protect NFTs for our clients. And we do hundreds of takedowns per day. So just because you can prove ownership of the NFT doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to try to pretend that they own it. It's a very important point. I was at the conference last year, and I was somewhat surprised that nobody was discussing protecting their NFTs. And I don't simply mean this from a brand owner's perspective. I mean from an artist's perspective. I know there's some conflict between creativity and brand ownership, that somebody might take a famous brand and alter it and try to make it their own work of art, and that's perfectly fine. And it's those points of view that I'm going to discuss now. So some want infringement to be one way. So from a brand owner's perspective, they don't want to see anyone using their brands. They don't want to see them altered, manipulated. They want full control over their brands. In reality, ever since Andy Warhol, and he's going to come up later on in this discussion, artists have been taking the intellectual property of others and altering it and making creative works out of it. Some want it to be another way. The other way is the artist's point of view, that artists can do whatever they want with someone else's intellectual property. However, unless it's a creative work, if you're simply taking something and changing the color of it and minting an NFT, well, if it's somebody else's intellectual property, they're not going to be happy about that. But maybe there's the Andy Warhol way, where somebody takes the intellectual property of somebody else but creates something entirely new out of it. Now, this digital image here is an NFT that Andy Warhol himself created, I imagine with some sort of electronic pen drawing in the 80s. I believe it went to auction for 1.1 million. And the interesting thing about this sort of third perspective, where the intellectual property of someone else can be manipulated to create something new, actually has come up in a recent court case where a famous luxury handbag company had one of their bags manipulated and altered and minted into an NFT by somebody. And as I said earlier, the brand didn't like that. The brand has sued the creator of the NFT. And the creator of the NFT, in defending himself in the court case, wanted to bring in an expert witness, the biographer of Andy Warhol, interestingly enough. And the brand owners realized how dangerous that could be from their point of view, and they had the witness struck from the case. They asked the judge not to allow the witness to testify, and somehow they were allowed to do that. So basically, my overall message is think about protecting your NFTs, whether you're a brand, whether you're an artist. Don't simply think because it's on the blockchain that it's protected because you can prove ownership. You need to think about protecting it. One final note is that in terms of case law, it's very much up in the air. I read an article the other day by a Ivy League law professor who took the view that copyright doesn't matter when it comes to NFTs. You should be able to do whatever you want. And the issue with that I see is that I know my company has a high 90s success rate in taking down infringing NFTs. So the marketplaces definitely side with the intellectual property owners. And whether you're a brand or whether you're an individual artist, it's something you should be mindful of. And that's basically it. I said I wouldn't go the 10 minutes. I'll take a question or two if anybody has one. Well, as I said, I think it's early days, and I don't see any one case at this time impacting the overall IP protection landscape. I think that existing IP laws are going to be the dominant force in regards to NFT intellectual property. There seems to be a belief that whenever a new medium comes out for IP, that the laws have to be rewritten or decided again. But that's really not the case. In the early days of the internet, when it was the Wild West, after a couple of years, things settled down, and existing IP and copyright law determined who owned what, who could display what, who could control what. Yes? I think that's a great question. I think it's very much up in the air. I don't think my own company knows the way forward in that regard yet. I imagine as that medium becomes more popular, it will be decided. I think as things are in their beginning phases, people really don't know what's going on. That's just to be perfectly honest. But it is important to think about your IP in those landscapes. Even if you don't have your IP in those landscapes, you want to get them on there, for sure. Yes? Well, there's a sort of maxim when it comes to trademark and copyright: use it or lose it. And back to my prior answer there, I think it's very important to get into those landscapes. Just dive in head first. Get your IP out there, because if somebody's putting your IP out there before you are, it just makes it all the more harder to protect it. And for the record, I'm not an attorney, so please don't construe any of this as legal advice. Yes? Well, thankfully I'm not in sales, I'm in relationships, so. So in terms of NFTs, it's the NFT marketplaces, OpenSea, all the most popular ones. And I was speaking to a colleague. I'm not in the trenches, so to speak. I don't look for the infringement myself. But from what I gather, it's very old-fashioned investigative work. It's keyword searches, it's image searches, and that sort of thing. It's not any more sophisticated than that. It's not searching for code in the blockchain or anything like that. It's going on a marketplace, typing in a client's name, see what comes up. I'm sure they got like fancy web crawling programs and stuff like that too, yeah, absolutely. So thank you all very much. Like I said, this is more of a philosophical discussion than a sales plug, believe it or not, but I'm happy to talk to anybody afterwards as well. Thank you.